A.D. Khalid al-Nuaimi, a powerful 68-year-old Emirati tycoon, and Liza Santos, the quiet Filipina nurse who became his wife, were supposed to build a future together, but a hidden DNA test inside a luxury hospital exposed a truth so disturbing that it ended in sudden death, erased identities, and a mystery no one was ever meant to uncover. A wealthy 68-year-old Emirati tycoon, Khalid al-Nuaimi, lived a life built on power, control, and secrecy. He owned several international companies in construction, oil trading, and luxury real estate, making him one of the most influential businessmen in the Gulf region. Despite his success, his personal life was isolated, and he trusted very few people. He often visited a private medical center in Dubai for routine health monitoring, where only top-tier staff were allowed to attend him. Every visit was carefully scheduled, and every interaction around him was monitored for privacy and security. During one of these routine visits, Khalid met Liza Santos, a young Filipina nurse who had recently been transferred to the VIP care unit. She had come to the UAE seeking better opportunities and worked long hours in a demanding environment. Liza was known among staff for her discipline, calm behavior, and ability to handle difficult patients without complaint. She rarely spoke about her personal life, and most colleagues only knew basic details about her background. Khalid first noticed her during a late-night observation shift. Unlike others, she did not appear nervous in his presence and followed instructions with precision. Over the next few weeks, he began requesting her assistance more frequently, even when other nurses were available. This behavior slowly created a tension among hospital staff, who started observing subtle changes in their interactions. Although nothing openly inappropriate was visible, the frequency of their contact became unusual for a patient and nurse relationship. As time passed, Khalid's visits to the medical CAR increased beyond normal routine checks. He began extending his stay, often requesting Liza's presence during consultations. Outside the hospital, he arranged private meetings under the pretext of medical follow-ups. These meetings were always brief, but became more frequent, raising quiet concern among senior staff members. Eventually, rumors began circulating within restricted hospital circles about a developing personal connection between the tycoon and the nurse. The hospital administration, however, found no official breach of conduct in the records, so no immediate action was taken. Still, the atmosphere around them changed, as if an unseen line had been crossed. Within a short period, Khalid made a shocking announcement that he intended to marry Liza. The news spread rapidly through elite business and medical networks, causing disbelief and speculation. His family reacted with strong disapproval and immediately withdrew from public association with him. Despite opposition, the marriage proceeded in complete privacy, organized within days and attended only by a handful of witnesses. After the ceremony, Liza moved into his secluded mansion, stepping into a world of extreme wealth, strict security, and growing mystery that would soon begin to shift everything around her. After the marriage, life inside Khalid al-Nuaimi's mansion changed in ways that were subtle at first, but became increasingly difficult to ignore. The house, once known for strict order and quiet luxury, began to feel tense and unpredictable. Khalid, who had always been controlled and disciplined, started showing unusual concern about his physical condition. He requested medical checks more frequently than before, even when there were no clear symptoms. His private physicians found it unusual but implied due to his authority and influence. Liza Santos adjusted quickly to her new environment. She continued her nursing routines inside the mansion, often assisting with Khalid's health monitoring and medication schedules. To the outside world, she appeared to be a devoted caretaker wife, managing his medical needs with professionalism. However, staff members who worked in the household noticed inconsistencies that did not match her previously verified employment records. Some documents related to her past training and hospital assignments were either missing or incomplete, raising quiet suspicion among administrative personnel. At the same time, Khalid's physical condition created confusion among his doctors. Instead of deteriorating as expected for someone of his age and medical history, he showed periods of unexpected improvement. His blood reports and vital signs fluctuated in ways that did not follow normal medical patterns. This contradiction led his private doctor to request a deeper internal review of his treatment history and medication records. During this period, financial auditors connected to Khalid's corporate empire also detected irregular transactions linked to the medical facility he frequently used. Payments were being routed through multiple layers of accounts, making it difficult to trace their origin. Although nothing directly pointed to wrongdoing, the pattern was unusual enough to raise concern at a higher level. Inside the mansion, Khalid's behavior slowly shifted. He became more private, often isolating himself for long hours and avoiding communication with his family entirely. His trust in outsiders decreased sharply, and he relied almost exclusively on Liza for daily support. This growing dependence created an invisible distance between him and his long-established inner circle. Hospital administrators, noticing inconsistencies in old patient records, quietly initiated an internal audit of archived files connected to Khalid's medical history. The process was slow and confidential, as any public exposure could damage both reputations and institutional credibility. As the investigation moved forward, early signs suggested that certain medical entries might have been altered or duplicated. By the end of this phase, the situation remained unclear but increasingly unstable. What began as a controversial marriage had slowly developed into a web of medical uncertainty, financial irregularities, and unexplained changes in Khalid's health, setting the stage for deeper discoveries that were still hidden beneath the surface. The internal audit at the medical center soon moved beyond paperwork and routine verification. What initially appeared as minor inconsistencies in Khalid al-Nuaimi's archived medical files began forming a disturbing pattern. Some entries showed duplicated test results from different years, while others contained missing timestamps that should have been impossible in a tightly controlled V-forced-P system. The hospital's compliance team escalated the matter quietly, aware that even a small mistake in handling a figure like Khalid could lead to serious consequences. To clarify the confusion, Administra ordered a full review of biological samples stored under Khalid's identity. These samples were meant to represent a consistent medical history over several years. However, when technicians cross-checked older specimens with newly collected ones, they noticed mismatched identifiers. At first they suspected labeling errors, but repeated verification ruled out simple mistakes. The irregularities pointed toward intentional interference. The situation escalated when a controlled DNA comparison test was conducted using multiple archived samples. The results revealed a contradiction that no one expected. Genetic markers that should have remained stable over time showed inconsistencies that suggested sample substitution or external tampering. In simple terms, some of the biological records attributed to Khalid did not fully belong to him. This discovery created immediate tension within the investigation team. If the findings were accurate, it meant that someone with access to restrictions systems had manipulated sensitive identity data over an extended period. The scale of the breach suggested insider involvement rather than an external hack or accidental error. Further analysis deepened the concern. Certain samples linked to Khalid's treatment history appeared to have been replaced at different stages, creating a layered medical profile that did not align with natural biological continuity. The more the technicians investigated, the clearer it became that the inconsistencies were systematic rather than random. Attention gradually shifted toward individuals with direct access to both patient care and medical records. Liza Santos, as Khalid's primary caregiver inside the mansion and a former hospital nurse in the same facility, came under quiet procedural review. Her movements inside restricted areas of the hospital were rechecked against security logs, revealing multiple entries that coincided with times when sensitive samples were accessed. Despite the GRO-N remained confidential, authorities understood that exposing such findings prematurely could trigger panic within both the medical institution and Khalid's business network. Still, the direction of the case had fundamentally changed. What was once viewed as a complex marriage arrangement was now evolving into a potential identity-level medical manipulation, with consequences far more serious than anyone had initially imagined. As the investigation deepened, the focus quietly expanded beyond medical records into financial and security systems connected to Khalid al-Nuaimi's private life. Auditors reviewing encrypted transactions discovered a chain of offshore accounts that had no clear link to his known corporate structures. These accounts showed repeated transfers timed closely with Khalid's hospital visits and medical procedures. The pattern suggested a coordinated system operating in the background, carefully designed to avoid detection while appearing unrelated on the surface. At the same time, hospital security logs revealed a troubling detail. Liza Santos had been granted repeated access to restricted storage areas that contained archived biological samples and high-level patient records. Each entry appeared authorized, but deeper inspection showed that several permissions were temporarily elevated under emergency credentials. These credentials were later traced back to internal overrides that had not been properly documented. This raised serious questions about how deeply the system had been compromised. Inside the mansion, Khalid's condition began to worsen in unpredictable ways. His periods of clarity were followed by sudden fatigue and disorientation. His personal doctors struggled to stabilize him, as test results continued to show conflicting data. Medication responses that should have been consistent were instead irregular, as if his body was reacting differently each time. The medical team could not determine whether the cause was illness progression or external interference. Khalid also became increasingly withdrawn. He reduced contact with his family entirely and refused external consultations. His dependence on Liza grew stronger, as she remained the only consistent presence in his daily care routine. This isolation made it difficult for outside professionals to fully assess his condition or verify what was happening inside the mansion. During one of the emergency evaluations, Khalid was suddenly rushed to the hospital after experiencing a severe collapse. The event occurred without clear warning signs, and initial reports did not indicate a single identifiable cause. Doctors attempted multiple stabilizing procedures, but his condition deteriorated rapidly, despite intervention. The inconsistency between his symptoms and medical history created further confusion among the treating team. Meanwhile, investigators reviewing digital surveillance noticed gaps in footage covering critical time windows, both the hospital and the mansion. These missing segments aligned with key moments of sample handling and medical administration. Although no direct action was captured, the absence of data itself became a significant concern. By the end of this phase, the case had escalated far beyond a private medical concern. It now involved financial irregularities, compromised security systems, and a rapidly declining patient whose medical identity itself appeared uncertain. The situation was no longer isolated, and every new finding suggested that the truth was being carefully concealed behind layers of control and manipulation. After Khalid al-Nuaimi's sudden death, the entire case shifted from urgent medical response to full forensic investigation. His body was transferred under strict security, and access was tightly controlled to prevent any interference. What initially appeared to be a natural medical collapse soon became the center of suspicion due to the unresolved contradictions. Records, treatments, and biological history. A comprehensive post-mortem examination was conducted with specialists from multiple departments. The first stage focused on confirming identity consistency through DNA comparison with stored historical samples. This step, however, produced the most troubling outcome yet. The genetic profile of the deceased did not fully align with earlier medical records attributed to Khalid over the past years. Some markers matched, but others showed clear discontinuities that could not be explained by normal medical conditions or aging. This raised the possibility that the biological identity under treatment had been altered or replaced at different points in time. Further forensic analysis of medical archives revealed a structured pattern of sample inconsistencies stretching across several years. Instead of isolated errors, investigators found repeated evidence of substitution in stored biological materials. This suggested a long-term manipulation on process that had been carried out gradually, likely to avoid detection. The complexity of the pattern indicated planning and access to advanced medical infrastructure. As authorities prepared to expand the investigation, attention turned to Liza Santos, who had disappeared shortly after Khalid was declared dead. Her departure was sudden and untracked, with no confirmed exit records from the city's main transportation systems. Searches conducted at the mansion and hospital did not yield any trace of her location. Her personal files were found partially erased or incomplete, as if intentionally cleared. Financial tracking of the offshore accounts revealed final transfers made shortly before Khalid's collapse. These transactions were routed through multiple international intermediaries, making them nearly impossible to fully trace. However, their timing strongly suggested coordination with key events in Khalid's final days. Despite extensive efforts, investigators were unable to identify a single controlling source behind the network. Eventually, due to lack of direct evidence linking individuals to a confirmed criminal act, the case could not be fully prosecuted. It was officially classified as a complex case of medical fraud combined with identity manipulation and systemic corruption within private healthcare channels. The investigation was quietly closed, though many questions remained unanswered. Khalid's empire began to destabilize after his death, with internal disputes and financial fragmentation spreading across his companies. The mansion where he once lived was left empty, preserved but unused. Liza's whereabouts remained unknown, and the truth behind the manipulation was never fully uncovered, leaving behind a case defined more by what was hidden than what was proven.